mat, the Fool. You can look at some of the images. I might just point out a few things here because they're kind of interesting. The red is the color of the phallus. He's got two phalluses. One is red and one is blue. And there's the dog chasing him. And he's number 0. He has no number. So he kind of expresses infinite potentiality. Okay, next one. So this is the magician, the ballateur, and he's number 1. So he's the beginning of the series. And you can look at it in a linear progressive manner, like as if you're reading, a book, or if you're reading, Roman alphabets, they go from right to left. So 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So we start with 0 and then we have 1. And there's 10. Actually, there's 2 sets of 10. It's kind of important. There's 2 sets of 10, and there's a 0 at the beginning, and then there's the world at the end. Okay, the Papas she's the scholar. She's the feminine, let's say, nun or something like that, who's the person who's reflective, the scholar, the intellectual, what you have you. Jodorowsky said something else I liked. He said that they are androgynous by nature. So even though it's a Papas, you don't want to say, oh yeah, that's me because I'm male or female. We want to connect to the card, whether it's male or female, because we're connecting to the male or female inner side ourselves. So Imperatrice is kind of the opposite of the number 3. The Imperatrice is nature in its fullness, complete expressive nature. And if you can see, she's kind of looks like almost like she's pregnant, and she has a phoenix on her lap. 4 is the Emperor. The Emperor symbolizes stability. Okay, sitting in your throne, and everything is in place in the world. The numbers are important. 4 is a stable number, like a square. So 3 is a dynamic number. The odd numbers are dynamic. The even numbers are harmonious. The Pope is also called the Pontiff, and then Crowley's deck and other people's deck, they call him the Hierophant, because they wanted to avoid the Christian stuff. But he joins heaven and earth. Pontiff also means bridge. He's a bridge from the material to the spiritual, you could say. And, he has disciples, and, he's the spiritual teacher, so to speak. The Lover, which is self-explanatory, I think. Number 6. So I guess, and you could think of it as a story. There's a story being told here. So we go from the story of let's say the magician who's like learning a trade, to the high priestess who's studying, to the empress who's expressing herself in the world, and then to the emperor, has a place in the world, number 5, and then to a spiritual longing, and then finally you find a lover. And I like this one because it reminds you, like, there's an incestuous thing going on. The one on the left is like the mom or something, and the one on the right is like the hot girl. Or you could also say the one on the left is like ugly, because she kind of has a funny nose. And he's looking at her like he's attached to her, but he wants to. He's probably more interested in the one on the right. So you could think Jodorowsky really goes into the psychoanalysis of the cards and
like Girardian love triangle.
Yeah, exactly. It's a love triangle. The Chariot is pure masculine force and energy. It's the most forceful card in the early deck, the first half of the tarot decks. It's energy, power, direction, force, total masculinity. Justice, another female archetype, and she holds the sword and the balance. And so the first 8 cards, this is the end of the first 8 cards, which is a complete set. So the sign of infinity is like an 8, right? So the first 8 is a complete set. So this might, if you get this card, it might be, oh, this is a completion of something, of a movement of some kind. The Hermit I love the Hermit. I sort of thought of him as Zarathustra on the mountain who goes off into solitude, and there's something true about that. There's also the fact that he's shining a light on something. And also he's alone. So this is a card that could signify a crisis, or a aloneness, and searching in the fog for illumination. Next, we have the Wheel of Fortune, which is the end. Yeah. So this is like, this, it's interesting. In Buddhism, there's a similar wheel, and I think some people would say it's a monkey and a dog, and the dog is domesticating himself. He's going up, and the monkey is going down into nature. And then there's a sphinx at the top who has a big question, like what's next? Because this is the first series. So this is number 10, and you're about to begin a whole new series. And then we have Force. This is the beginning of the next series. So if you remember, the Magician is number 1, and Force is number 11. So they're connected. The Magician. This is the next stage of the Magician, right? They're like a couple, and she. This is again taming the beast, taming the its power, and is she opening the beast's mouth? Is she opening up power, or is she keeping it shut? Who knows? Again, and her hat is shaped like the sign of infinity. There's all kinds of symbolism in here, which you can get into, like the meaning of the colors. And okay, this is a good one. The Hangman, the Hanged Man, not the Hangman, the Hanged Man. Everything is in suspension. It's like, it could be a symbol of spiritual illumination. It could be a symbol of your life being turned upside down. It could be a symbol of, Tomberg calls it reverse gravity, which is sort of interesting. Sacrifice, all kinds of possibilities. And then this one is, this is the nameless arcana. It has no name, number 13. But whereas in the Rider-Waite's deck and Crowley's deck, they call it death, but they don't want to call it death because it never had death written on it. And also, if you see, he's got flesh colored, he's got flesh all over him, so he's not necessarily dead. And he is clearing away the old to make room for the new. He's cutting away what is unnecessary. Temperance is like the flow state. That's what I think of this one as. Balancing the higher and the lower, the up and the down. And she's got wings. So she's kind of a bit like, it's about balance, but not in the same sense as justice is about balance, more in the sense of its spiritual, sublime balance, like a meditative flow state. Okay, and then we have the Devil. The Devil is the artist card. So again, Jodorowsky doesn't want us to interpret this as like the good versus evil. This is bad, and but it does have a quality of it, addictiveness. In the Rider-Waite's deck, they're stuck to the Devil, but they can go free. So if they want, but they choose to be servants of the Devil. But you could also say that this is the artistic card. There's a way in which Owen asked me about what card he wanted, and I was thinking of Owen, because Owen sometimes speaks of himself as having a kind of androgynous nature, or we all have a kind of androgynous nature. The artist has to be a bit androgynous, so he's androgynous, and he's artistic. This is art. Art is when you go into the deep, dark subconscious and meet the creatures of the unconscious and find expression for them. Okay, then we have the Maison Dieu, which is often associated with the Tower of Babel. And again, the other cards, like the Rider-Waite's cards, it's like this violent sort of like almost like September 11th thing happening, like an explosion in the air and something coming out of the air, and then people falling out of windows. But here, that's possible, but they could also be dancing. And this could also be celebration. This feather, it could also be a symbol of sudden enlightenment. because there's sort of a feather, which is also sometimes depicted as lightning, and there's these colorful balls coming out and they're dancing and they're upside down. But it is a card of transformation, change, something, the end of one thing and the beginning of another again. It's a dynamic, transformative transformation card. Then we have the beginning of the three lights. How are we doing for time? Yeah, 20 minutes. Okay. The beginning of the three lights card. First you have star, moon, and sun. And this is Garden of Eden, a beautiful woman, and she's pouring different liquids, and there's a sort of a quality of primordial innocence and beauty and beginning and inspiration. I think maybe inspiration would be the word for this card. And then the moon is this moon here is the mother principle, according to Jodorowsky. It looks like you see a sort of crab, and this is like evolution too, because it's like going from down here where there's kind of a swamp, and then there's two dogs, and then there's two towers, and there's a way in which it's there's a duality. There's illusion, duality, transformation, the world of sort of like the nighttime world where nothing is explicit or understandable, or there's a kind of, I don't know, has a psychedelic quality. And then the sun is the masculine fullness. And there's these two characters, which you can see in several different cards. They're like twins, or there's a union there. And then there's a wall protecting them. So there's also a sort of Garden of Eden myth there. So he has a funny face, this sun. I have to think more about him. I don't know what these little red things around his neck symbolize, but they're kind of interesting. Or the blue thing. And one of them has a tail. I never noticed that. You see, one has a tail.
Mm.
So one is probably the animalistic, and one is the spiritual, or something like that. One of these creatures has a tail. Wow. Okay, so judgment is something is being born. Could be a child, a new artistic creation, and is being trumpeted and brought from the dead into life. And then finally there's the four animals. There's the lower animals and the higher animals. Some of them are vegetarian, and some of them are carnivore. So I think the horse is a vegetarian and the lion is a carnivore. Jodorowsky was speaking about that in his book. And then you have the higher animals, which are, flights of the flights. So this is the full story, the full expression. She's naked, beautiful naked woman. In one hand, she has a phallic symbol. In the other, she has, I guess, a bell. It reminds me very much of tantric imagery, because often the goddess, the dakini, is naked, but yet she's adorned.